Ciao, all you proffers out there, and ciao a tutti. And I'm really glad for those of you who have decided to listen to the recap. Welcome. This is Prof Jo at Prof Jo Explains. So this is day 5 of the Brian Walshe trial. I assume that some of you watched the trial today, and there was more of the going through the messages on the phone and, what they proved from the forensic experts. And we started with Trooper Keefe, who was back on the witness stand testifying to what he was able to do with the forensic records that he was in charge of. And I will say here, before I even get into anything else, that the defense tried very hard to get him to talk about things that were not in his job description. He did the downloading, through Celebrite of the data and organized it. And he could talk about the data, but the defense kept trying to ask him about, well, did you go out to the scene and do this? Did you go out and check the trash bags? Did you check in Washington, D.C.? None of that is in his job description. But the defense tried over and over again to get him to say things like that, or at least to suggest, because he said he didn't, that therefore the police investigation was not adequate. He was great on the stand. He was unflappable on the stand. He was very good at being clear that this was not what he did. I think he could have been even clearer, but he really did a very good job of it. And he was terrific at knowing what his data showed, because he caught the defense lawyer several times in misstating or being wrong about a date or exhibit number, or whether there was an earlier download that said something different, which was very good. And I don't think that the defense lawyer was deliberately trying to do it. It was just there were a lot of data, and he at times got a little confused about what the data were, because by and large, I think he did a great job of going through all the data and picking up things to inquire about. So anyway, that was Trooper Keefe. He was very good. So I want to start with trying to put in context why the defense did what it did, what it was trying to do, and what the state's end of it is. Because I think if you keep the context in mind, the way the questions are going and what the defense is doing, I think will make a little more sense. The defense's theory of the case, and I'm not talking about, gee, he went downstairs on early New Year's Day to clean the kitchen and came back up and found her dead. I mean, obviously that's their story. I'm talking about the theory that they're using to promote it. And there you have one of the defense lawyers and the defendant with what looks like a pink tie. He's trying to look soft. Their version of it, their main theme is it was a happy marriage. Yes, there were stresses, and part of the stresses were generated by the fact that he had been convicted of not wire fraud, but he had been convicted of fraud with regard to the Andy Warhol counterfeits. There were stresses because it was a commuter marriage for her, but there was no thought of divorce. He was not thinking about divorce. She was not thinking about divorce. In fact, they were planning to buy more property together. They had a series of exchanges by text in which they were playful with each other. He had made dinner reservations for New Year's Day. And so it was that sort of thing. No money issues, no marital issues. He was thinking of buying her a Porsche, although I would say he's going to have to use her money to do it. But nonetheless, so there was no motive whatsoever for him to kill her. On the state side, their theory is, yes, there were big stresses in the marriage. She had taken out one insurance policy for $1 million, and he was after that money. He knew that she was thinking of divorce. He knew about the affair that she had with Bill Fashow. And by the time we get to the week before New Year's Day, he knew she was texting him. She was texting the night of New Year's Eve. The dinner guest had talked about how much texting she was doing. And he, on his laptop or phone, was getting some of the messages between her and Fastow. And so he definitely knew of 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 her affair and had some reason to believe that she was going to leave him. And the money issues, he's going to have to pay a $450,000 restitution as part of the sentence in that federal case. His mom was paying the rent on the house. And so, yes, there were money issues in there. And that on the Commonwealth side, she was in very good health. She belonged to a gym. She was going 4 days a week for some pretty rigorous exercise classes. Those were the bar classes. So those are the two diametrically opposed views about both money and the marital situation. What the defense then tried to do, and let me say on the Commonwealth side, Fastow testified that once she got back from New Year's, they were supposed to celebrate on the 4th, and they were going to start talking about a 1, 3, 5, 10-year plan, suggesting that they were looking ahead to a life together. On the defense side, they say to him, yeah, but you were sending messages that you couldn't get married because your son would have been distraught. So you can see two different views of the same things: the marriage, the money. The defense then tried through the text messages and the record of the phone calls to say that anything that was in them that looked incriminating or suspicious could be explained away if you had the full context. And the one that I'm going to talk about, there were a couple of instances of this, but the big one was on Christmas Day around noon, a little after noon, Brian Walshe had done safari searches. One of them was DC plane crash, and the other one was Ann Walsh dead, essentially, which, from the point of view of the Commonwealth, certainly looked incriminating. It looked like he was already thinking about killing her, or at least her being dead and out of his life on Christmas Day. The defense, I thought, did a really good job of putting those in context, that immediately preceding those were his text to her to saying, why aren't you here? When are you coming? And she responds that the plane was, her flight was canceled and she was driving after those two queries on Safari. So the defense paints a picture that what he was saying was trying to find out what had happened, the first one anyway, plane crash, trying to find out what happened to her. The defense also suggested that the other one, Ann Walsh dead, was the same thing. That one I didn't buy at all. But I mean, I think they would have been better off saying he was just so angry at her that she wasn't there for the kids on Christmas morning. But anyway, you can see that what the defense is doing is those two texts, which can be viewed as incriminating and come before January, the night of December 31, the early morning of January 1, go to help show premeditation. And the defense, I think, did a pretty good job of countering. They couldn't counter the whole way. It may not be ultimately persuasive with the jury, but that's what they had, and they did their best. So that's the way this was couched. And we spent a long time with the defense going over the phone records, some of which I thought were to no purpose. They didn't really move that defense overall theory forward. But the defense was also trying to poke holes in, you didn't do an adequate investigation. So that was another effort that he was doing. You didn't do an adequate investigation. You didn't look at this. You didn't look at that. Your search was focused on your theory of what happened, and there were other things that might have been going on. So we learned a lot about queries about movies and queries about buying champagne or wine. I mean, it was all, I thought, to no purpose. and it took a long time. And for those of us who were watching and were not in the courtroom, we didn't have a frame of reference because they would talk about exhibit X pages something to something. We didn't have any of that. And so it was hard to follow it at times. But I think for the jury, not so hard. There was probably something posted on the screen for them. We just didn't get it. The Commonwealth then ended with a real strong note, because they then started to bring in more of the evidence of what Brian Walshe used to dismember his wife, and I would say maybe to kill her. And so there you go. There's a picture. Look at the hammer, a really big shears, the hacksaw, the hatchet, and even the pliers, the really big pliers. And you just sit there and think about what used them to do, and it's really just, it's frightening. It gives you a really chill. And so that's where the Commonwealth ended. They had that. There were a couple of other pictures that I think we were going to be able to put up that the jury saw with regard to blood on, there you go. That's some of that's some of the evidence from one of the trash bags that was there. And so I think the Commonwealth ended on a really high, because that evidence is the image that the jury is going to have for the whole weekend. And not only that, the jury's been instructed, don't talk about it with anybody. You're not supposed to talk about this case. And so therefore, not only are they left with the image of those instruments and what he did with them, but on top of that, they're unable to talk about it with anyone. So I think it's going to they're going to be thinking about it, and they have no way to even release some of that pressure, emotion, because they can't share it with anyone. So I think it was a really big high, and I don't mean high obviously in a happy sense, but a really big high for the prosecution to end with. And we'll pick up on Monday with more of the same. And we are getting into some of the heart of this evidence. And I will say now, I'm going to be with you for those who are going to watch the trial on Monday and hopefully on Tuesday. And we don't know, Thursday, Friday. I cannot do it on Wednesday because my non-changeable conflict that I thought was this Wednesday is actually this coming Wednesday. But otherwise, I'll be doing that, and I'll do the recaps every night at 5. But so that's where we're going. The judge did say that she is now estimating that the trial will take 2 more weeks. She said 3 weeks, and that would take us through next week and the week after. I don't know whether that's accurate or whether she's projecting more time, but at least we've now reduced the trial time for 1 week, and now it's a 3-week trial rather than a 4-week trial. So that's really, I don't know that there's anything else that I want to say about what happened today. I certainly don't want to go into a summary of all the records or all the documents that the defense lawyer went through with Trooper Keith. I mean, for those of us who watching it was enough. We don't want to now review it. And I think I gave you the highlight of it. So are there any questions? And I see Yvette 2580 saying the last evidence before ending looks very interesting. Well, interesting is one way to put it. I would say horrifying. And so the question is, did the defense make any points with the trooper? He was very good. He was unflappable. He stayed in his lane. Every time the defense lawyer tried to pull him out and have him talk about something that wasn't in his job description, he was very clear he was not moving. And the points that the defense was able to make really related to putting those 2 December 25 text messages, or no, they would have been Safari searches, I think. Uh, uh, DC plane crash and Anna Walshe dead in context. And that's what the records were. I mean, it wasn't making points off him. That's simply what the records are. And I think the defense did do a good job, the best job they were able to do with that evidence. They did. So, other questions? Do I have any thought that the defense is drawing the prosecution into a trap? No. Craig Brown, if you have an idea of what the trap might be, just post it and then I'll think about it. But I don't see that they're drawing them into any kind of a trap. The prosecution just has too much evidence. Riding shotgun. Can the jury keep a journal to keep their thoughts and information straight? I don't recall whether she told them. I think the answer is yes, because I think I heard one of the lunch breaks, there was a reminder to them to leave their writing. I don't know if she called it a journal or not, on the seats. Some judges allow jurors to take notes, others don't. And I think they are, from my memory of that comment about leave them there, you can't take them with you when you go to lunch. But if someone knows for sure, if someone heard what she said, I didn't hear her talk about it directly to the jury. But as I said, some judges allow it, some don't. The theory for no is that if you have been taking notes over the course of the trial and I don't, and we get into the jury room for deliberations, you're going to be going through your notes and reading what you said, and that may be given more weight than my memory of what happened. When one, my memory may be just as good, and two, your notes may be bad. You didn't necessarily record it correctly. The fear that that might happen, so they don't permit note taking. I think most now do permit note taking, partly on the theory that some of us, when we're getting information, write it. When I'm in class, I'm just a big note taker. I take notes about things I know I'm never going to go back to, but I take notes. It's my way of focusing and listening better. And so that sort of person, the note taking helps to concentrate and pay attention. And so most judges now allow it. There will be some jurors that won't do it even if they can. And some of them will write what I would be doing, copious notes. Others of them may just jot, a refresher comment once in a while. Was it good to choose to jury before a weekend break? The aim was sluggish. I think it was an effective way to regain jury attention. I thought it was a terrific way because, as I said, that's their last memory of this week of trial. And it's a memory that's very helpful to the prosecution. So, yes, I do think it was a good way to end. Do I think the defense had any winning moments so far? Well, the one I gave you, the one that I think is there, being able to put in context those two DC December 25 Safari queries to sort of mute the claim that he was doing it because he was already starting to think, I want this woman out of my life, and how am I going to do it? And they also had some success with her lover, Will Fastow, because they got him to say that she loved him, that she didn't want to hurt him, that if she decided to leave him, she wanted to be the one to tell him. Those were all things that support the defense theory that there was no imminent divorce, that she planned to stay with him. So that was another thing that I think the defense was able to use successfully. I mean, it doesn't have a lot to go on, but chipping against that wall of evidence that the prosecution has, they did. I think they did as well as they could with what the evidence was that they had. And the defense lawyer was really terrific at going through all those records and picking out the things that could help, and then fashioning them in a way to make the narrative. Did they ever address the hole in the ceiling today? Nope. The hole in the ceiling has not come up. We're just going to have to wait to see when we're going to learn what the theory is about the hole in the ceiling. Now, I saw someone in the chat today say that the hole in the ceiling was in the master bedroom. I had not remembered that from the testimony, but if that's true, then at least I now know where the hole in the ceiling was or is. No, was, I guess, because it's now patched. But no, we didn't hear anything more about the hole in the ceiling. We are going to have to wait for more opportunity for that to get tied and to tell us what the significance is. Explain the significance of the robe behind me. That's cap and gown for faculty. You can't see the hood because it's on the back. For faculty for law school commencements. So since I am Prof Jo, I thought having something that suggested the prof part would be good for the background scene. And so there it is. And now that I put those Christmas bells on that, I'm thinking what I'm going to do is decorate that for all the seasons and all the holidays as they come. So I'm giving you a preview of what that's going to look like back there. Question from John Smith: was DNA found on all the murder weapons or just the hacksaw? They have not gotten into where the DNA or blood identification evidence is coming from. If you recall, if you were watching the trial today, the expert the trooper who was in charge of collecting evidence said she was collecting, bagging, noting, and that there was another unit for DNA that was collecting the items that they thought they might find DNA on. She was collecting items that they might find blood on, but they then bring them in and someone else would make the analysis of the blood and the DNA. And she did, of her own independent knowledge, would not testify to that. She didn't do those tests. So I'm assuming we're going to have another expert who will be tying that together. Do I feel that the defense brought up the charitable giving items in order to bring in character evidence? Yeah, probably. And also to show that they had money. You know, if you're really tight and you're paying debts and you don't have money, however much you would have, an instinct to be charitable, you don't have the wherewithal to do it. So I think it probably served both functions. So do we have anything else? Or are we? It looks like we may have gotten our questions out. Nope. Plausible. The mom killed Anna and Brian covered it up. Not plausible at all on the evidence that we have, because the evidence we have is the dinner guest on New Year's Eve. There were 3 of them at dinner. There's no indication from him that there was anyone else in the house. And it's not, for me, not possible to believe that the mother is in the house and is not also having New Year's Eve dinner with them. And so then after the dinner guest goes home, you've got those 3 hours before Brian Walshe starts asking Google questions about, how do you get rid of 10 ways to get rid of a body, and how do you get rid of smell, and what's the best way to clean blood, and all those questions, suggesting that the killing was in that 3-hour time frame. There's no evidence that the mother came to the house during that period. And this would have been 1:30 on New Year's Eve. If she came to the house at all, it would have been because he called her to say, I just killed Anna. And then therefore she couldn't have been part of the killing. Otherwise, there's no way that I can imagine that his mother would be coming to the house on New Year's Eve, not knowing anything, at 1:30 in the morning. It just doesn't ring true to me at all. And if he called her, there would be a phone record about it, because remember, the 12/25 to January 4 is the time frame in which law enforcement has all the phone records. Okay, question. I don't understand how Viley is constantly smiling and flirting with his lawyer. I don't know that I would say he was flirting at her. And I don't even know how much he was looking at her. And it would be pretty stupid of him to be doing that visibly in front of the jury. So I guess I'm not persuaded that that's what he was doing, but I wasn't focused on when the screen went to him. I was generally looking down at the chat to see if I could pick up a question really quickly. So you may have the better part of that assessment. Okay, that's true. Poetic Justice said, it's amazing. I have my own show. Absolutely. And I hope you're all subscribed too, because that'll help me be able to do more. There is this, I think I've mentioned this more times than you want to hear, but YouTube has this metric or whatever they call algorithm. I have no idea what it does. I have no idea what's entered into it or why, but I do know that the more subscribers, the better. And subscribing doesn't cost anything. Has the jury ever requested the punishment was not strong enough? No, because the jury doesn't get to hear about punishment at all. That's the judge's job. The jury is the fact finder. The punishment that's going to be assessed for the crime belongs to the judge. And in fact, the judge will instruct the jury that it's not supposed to think about punishment or sentence at all. It's not their job. Does anyone know where she got the necklace? I don't. You mean the necklace in the picture? I don't. I know that it was part of it was found, was it in one of the trash bins? But I don't know how she got it, who gave it to her. So while we're waiting to see if there are any more questions, let me say that my Facebook page is now up and running. So if you want to post there, it's Prof Jo Explains. That's the Facebook, what do you call it, moniker, title, name. You know, I think I'm pretty good on grammar, and I think my vocabulary is pretty good. But this world, I don't know what the right nouns are, what the right verbs are, and I'm constantly floundering, trying to figure out how you say what you say. Oh, and there you go. Now you can see it. I've got a Facebook page, and there's the link to it. And then let me see if there is anything else. I think that's really it. Oh, here's one other thing that I would say. I think I mentioned this yesterday, but we'll have another video episode probably up tomorrow. And this one is, I compared the behavior of Donna Adelson and Sarah Boone at their sentencing, and they had a lot in common. And if I were to redo that video now, I might add Brian Walshe to the list. There are just parallels in the behaviors. But in any event, that will be up tomorrow. And if you have an interest in Adelson's at all, I think you might find it interesting. If you have an interest in Sarah Boone, you might find it interesting. If you have an interest in both, I think you will find it interesting, because I do compare pieces of the sentencing hearings themselves. And I also talk about what's supposed to happen at a sentencing hearing. So that one will be posted sometime tomorrow. I had done a number of videos on the Adelsons and the evidence against Donna. And as you know, I did the one on derivative use immunity on Wendy. And I have another episode that probably will be released in the next couple of weeks on admissible evidence against Wendy. Not all the things we know that look to be pointing to her guilt, but just what you're going to be able to, the prosecution will be able to enter in evidence against her. So there's a better way to assess what you think the likelihood is that she will or could be convicted. So anyway, that will be coming. Boyfriend gave her the necklace. So Taxel 8Y, I guess that's what that is. Thank you, because you have a better feel for the evidence than I do. There was a text where she told him she loved the necklace and thanked him. That's right. There was that text. So he gave her the necklace. Oh, there you go. Gen X to the seventh power is begging for me. I guess she feels she can beg better than I can. It's probably unseemly for me to beg for myself. And that's probably true, but I've been doing it anyway with regard to asking you to subscribe. I guess I have no shame. So are there any questions? Otherwise, have a nice weekend, and I will see you at the trial at 9 on Monday, where hopefully we're through most of the forensics. I think there's probably one more forensics expert to go, if I recall what the prosecutor did and will be doing. And if not, maybe at this recap. And I think it would behoove you to get and have a good feel for this case, because it will give you a really good perspective when Brian Walshe gets on the stand, which will be really, I think, the day of the trial. If you watch one day of the trial, that is really worth watching. So thanks a lot. I'm glad that you joined me here Ciao a tutti. Certainly hello to Proffers, and thank you for being on the team. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you all on Monday. So long.